Hey, thanks for tuning in to hear a message from us here at Red Church in Melbourne, Australia. If you are new to or exploring faith, have questions about the purpose and the meaning of life, we'd love to invite you to try Alpha. Alpha is a course kicking off on the Wednesday, the 9th of October in Blackburn South. It's a safe space to explore life, purpose, and the Christian faith, and ask questions and share your point of view. Each Wednesday, we'll share a meal together, listen to a talk, and chat about it. No question is off limits. If you'd like to come along, you can register now via redchurch.au. And if you're listening and know someone who is asking some of these big questions, and they're here in Melbourne, we'd love for you to invite them along. Find out everything you need to know about inviting someone to Alpha via our website. If you have any other questions about Red Church and our heart to see people awaken to Jesus, head to our website or join us on Sunday. But for now, here's the message.
All right. We're going from Daniel 3, if you're following along. It'll also be on the screen if you need it. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide. That's pretty big. It's about 3 meters high, 3 meters wide. Set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "Nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither," which is kind of like a guitar, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. "May the king live forever, your majesty." Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into the blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and some dude from Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. and these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, Your Majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God." All right, are you with me, guys? That was a long one. Well done. It's a pretty exciting story. It's a pretty amazing and incredible story. What inspires me and sticks out is the chutzpah of those 3 guys, refusing to bend the knee, refusing to bow down, worshipping God over any other earthly power, and were willing to pay a price for it. Luckily for them, they didn't have to. This is a dynamic that still plays throughout history. We even see it in Jesus' time. We see it in the history of our church. People who, under pressure, through the commitment and the confession and the faith that they live out, the faith that we live out, had to suffer pressure, threatened with punishment, and they still stood their ground. Some even gave up their lives for this. You may have heard the word martyr, and that's what we call people who give up their lives for the faith. And that is a heavy thing to think about. It's not really the experience that we have today. But what strikes me is what the word martyr means. The translation goes to be witness. These people witnessed to Jesus. Not just the way that they faced their end, but it was actually the life that they lived that was more important. The life that they chose to lead for Jesus that witnessed to the world his truth, his love, his mercy. So what can we draw from that dynamic into our lives? What does it mean for us in Melbourne 2024 as witnesses to this truth, as people of faith? What happens when we refuse to bow down to any pressure or threat? Theologian Gerald Sitzer writes on martyrs from the early church and says that the early Christians died because they confessed Jesus Christ as Lord. His lordship challenged all other ultimate claims in their lives: wealth, status, power, and Rome itself. They believed that Jesus tolerates no rivals. When forced to choose, they chose to follow Jesus, no matter what the price. The early martyrs paid an extreme price, their very lives, but the value of their example is not in the martyrdom themselves, however noble and courageous, but in their commitment to Christ's lordship. That we might not have to die for Christ is irrelevant. How we live for Christ is the real issue. This is very similar to the story in Daniel. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not tolerate any rivals to the Most High God. They confessed in their faith in him, and they were forced to choose. King Nebuchadnezzar said to them, if you bow down to it, very good. But if you don't, you know what's going to happen. And they said, we know, but we're not going to bow down. It's a dynamic that still continues in different ways for us today. There's like a line that they crossed and they refused to turn back. Now, I'm a pretty well-behaved guy. Didn't really cause much trouble in school. I went to a all-boys Catholic school, which is a jungle. Don't recommend. Actually, I loved it. And I was a pretty good guy. Didn't rock the boat, didn't do anything, wasn't really rebellious, except there was one time I crossed the line and I stuck with it. Does anyone, actually, I was trying to find the word this morning and I couldn't think, but does everyone still use the word wag when you wag school? Is that still a word? Okay, one person, a few nods, okay. It's like skipping. You skip school or you wag school. You wagged school today. Did you hear Andy wag school? I did not wag school. Did worse. So, being a Catholic school, once every week or so, a couple of weeks, a period would be devoted to Mass. So our year level would go and attend Mass. Now, this particular day, me and my friend Josh, he's not here so I can throw him under the bus, can use his real name. We were walking along, I think it was after a sport kind of activity, and we were near the exit of the back exit of the school, which is really inconspicuous, very easy to go in and out unnoticed. And we kind of looked at it, and for some reason we turned to each other and said, do you reckon if we walked out the door and no one would notice it, do you reckon we could wag Mass? I don't know. And for some reason, it was just the perfect crime of opportunity. It's like, let's just see if we get away with it. Let's just cross that line. So off we went. We didn't do anything fancy. We literally just sat by the Monash Freeway and chatted for 40 minutes, then try to walk our way back and go, all right, we're going to join the crowd. We're going to time it as they come out of the Mass. We'll walk with them and no one will ever know. Of course, people noticed. Teachers knew. And within a period or two, I found myself within the principal's office with a please explain why you decide to leave school grounds during Mass. I had no real reason, just thought because we could. And I remember walking to the school, and I thought, no one's going to know about this, it's a discreet thing. Don't need to tell my friends that I did this. Walk into the classroom, the entire class is chanting Saturday, 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 because it's a Saturday detention, which is what I got. So there you go. We crossed the line. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, early church, even Jesus himself crossed a line and refused to go back. And I want to call this line the threshold of confession, which will be up there. Confession in Jesus' lordship. Like I said, there was a lot of pressure on those guys, those three names, it says it so many times, to turn back. And they didn't. In my studies on this sermon, I came across a really incredible line from a man who was punished for his faith. And when asked to give an account of why he was in trial, and when actually given the chance to re-go, and at his time it was just offer a sacrifice to the emperor of Rome and you'll be fine. We'll let you off. It was just like Nebuchadnezzar. Just do it and you'll be fine. However, his answer was so convicting. He replied that I am a Christian. You cannot learn anything else from me. There is nothing greater I can say. There's nothing I can say which is greater or more wonderful than this. Wow. Willing to pay the ultimate price and didn't want to back down. This guy's crossed over. And it's inspiring that you don't actually have to be on some sort of trial to live like this. To decide that I'm going to cross over, no turning back. I give my life for Jesus. I want my life to be a witness to his glory, to his love. It's more than just lip service. The reason someone can say something like this is because of the life lived in surrender. And just like these guys, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and we'll find out Jesus, they came across two particular dynamics that push against them as you cross this threshold. And I've identified these things as tension and death, and it's not a literal death, as we'll find out in a bit. Another young person who found himself on trial had conducted himself with such good nature, with such love and compassion, even reaching out to those accusing him, forgiving those who were turning him in. There was a sense of pity on this man. And even the people who were accusing him, just like Nebuchadnezzar said, Please, I implore you, turn back. You don't have to confess Jesus as Lord. In fact, you can sacrifice to our emperor and still be a Christian. It's okay. We'll let you go. You just have to do this. And he's faced with this choice. And for early church historian Eusebius writes on this and says, and those who surrounded him, not only those who knew him, but those who also were not acquainted with him, urged him and entreated him one after another and besought the blessed man as if it was for their own lives. But some of them confirmed his good resolution. Others, again, by what they said, suggested irresolution, bidding him to regard with pity his own youth and person. Those of the same mind as himself called to his remembrance that hellfire which is to come, while others tried to make him afraid of the fire which was visible before him. That was the method of punishment. Some endeavored to terrify him by the mortal judge, while others reminded him of the judge of all judges. Some called upon him to regard this transitory life, while others persuaded him to look to the kingdom of heaven. Those who belonged to the right hand invited them to turn towards them, while those who belonged to the left hand tried to persuade him to mind earthly things. But he was a young man, handsome in person, brave in mind, and active in body, and being such, he proved his purity like gold in the furnace and the fire. And here's the kicker. He loved his confession in our Saviour better than the life of this time, which so soon passes away. When we cross this line, when we decide with our lives to bear witness to Jesus, there's going to be some pushback. There's going to be some tension. There's going to be some threats. As we shake the status quo, which is what these guys did, and when you live a life that's sold out to Jesus, that's what you'll experience as well. You'll live a life that stands out, that goes against the grain, against some of the things that are believed today, some of the cultural myths, some of the narratives. And just like them, there might be some opportunities to compromise. You can do some of this, and you can still be a Christian. It's okay. And like I said, it's not a literal thing in terms of this death. As we confess his lordship, as we proclaim who he is to the world around us, friends, family, the things that might be threatened is our comfort, our reputation. I'm worried what other people might think of me if I start to talk a little bit more about Jesus. It's like there's conversations. Oh, what did you do on Sunday? Oh, yeah, went to church. It was pretty good. And you kind of leave it at that sometimes. I do that. It's even gotten to the point where people ask you, how was church on Sunday? It was good, thanks. God's great. Oh, good. Sometimes when you mention Jesus, you go beyond the informal church chit-chat. How was your weekend? Good, thanks. Imagine the reaction. You said, I encountered the living Jesus and experienced his love. And you can too. The conversation might take a different turn. It might get awkward, but that's okay. Are we willing to deal with this tension? And it's not just a relational stuff, it's spiritual. There'll be a pushback, threatening you to go back across the line. You don't have to go all in for Jesus. You can be here and be here. So how do we live with this? How do we hold these two dynamics that try to push us back? We're actually really blessed. Just like in the early church, we have now the example set before us in Jesus. As we know, he was arrested, put on trial, and ultimately executed. He understood what it was like to face that tension. He understood what it was like to be threatened with his very life for the confessions that he made. We have someone who contends and understands and suffers alongside with us in Jesus. Just as Paul wrote in Romans, we also, just as we share in his sufferings, we also share in his glory. People were willing to pay the ultimate price because they knew their God did before. And what could be more empowering than to follow the example of their very Lord? Just like they faced a power structure that was threatening them, Jesus faced it. I'm always reminded of that question that Pilate, well, it's not really a question, it's an ultimatum. He approaches Jesus, don't you realize I have power to either set you free or execute you? And Jesus lets him know, you don't have any power over which is what is given. He understood where the real power lied. He understood where the real truth lied. He was able to bear this mockery, his execution, his arrest, his trial, and stand true to what he knew he had to do. So alongside following this example that Jesus sets before us, he gives us his Holy Spirit. One of the words that kept popping up in research for this was the patience people showed in their suffering, in their persecution. Just like Jesus showed. Most of the time during his trial, he stood silent. Just like that quote earlier, there's nothing more I can say. I'm a Christian. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, this is all we have to say. We will not bow down. Patience. It's a spiritual gift alongside peace, kindness, gentleness, love, self-control. These fruits often go against the grain. They show a higher way. They show of a higher God above the gods that people worship in this life. The things that people believe, things that people follow, themselves, other idols. These fruits point to a greater way, a better truth, that Jesus. Because our world is impatient. We're used to instant gratification. We want it and we want it now. If I really wanted to, I can get my phone, order a Zinger box and get it by the end of this sermon. But impatience implies an absence of the hope that's rooted in these spiritual gifts. What would have been really encouraging to the early church, and it encourages us today, is the words Paul wrote in Romans 5. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. And character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. So what does this mean for us today? How do we show patience as we bear our witness to the world, as we cross the continual lines, as we go deeper and deeper? I came to faith at 16. I come from an unchurched family. One of the things I was desperate to do when I found Jesus was to be baptized. Now, I come from an Eastern Orthodox setting, so I was already christened as an infant. And I thought it would be no biggie to say to my mum and dad, hey, look, I really want to get baptized. This is really important to me. And to my surprise, there was kickback. No, don't you dare. We've christened you. Don't you understand? It's like, oh, shot to the chest. I couldn't believe it. And it was hard because I was 16. I had to obey. I had to listen to my parents. I had to wait. Eventually it happened in my 20s, but it took patience. It took forbearance. It was something that I was desperate for. But even beyond turning into an adult, it was still a sore point for my parents. And so I still had to hold off. But when the day came, they actually were there, both of them. And they watched me get baptized. And although it took a while, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world, to see them for them to watch me witness that faith in a real way. It allows us to deal with the tension of being against the grain, allows us to love people in a way that they've never been loved before. I'm really touched by that video we watched before. It was patience that let that alpha volunteer listen to that man argue after every session until finally, bang, he understood. He prayed and God met him in such a powerful way. So my encouragement today is to not grow weary in doing good, as Paul writes. Persevere through the awkwardness that faces our everyday lives as we navigate our faith with family and friends, colleagues, co-workers, fellow school students. It's okay to have those conversations. It's okay to feel a little bit awkward, because we have the Holy Spirit that contends with us, that grows us, that causes us to have perseverance, patience, hope, and character.